Looking in from the outside, one may ask, are they worth saving? My answer? No.
6 years ago, in 2012, his lordship and I made that video, and now in 2018, Jagex has made a huge start on one of the most crucial points that was set forward in it, which was,
the wilderness poses the highest risk in the game. It is only logical that it should offer the highest return.
Seeing as we can now make in excess of 5 mil an hour at the Rev Caves, this is somewhat in effect, but not entirely, and there are a few drawbacks and issues that remain unresolved. Let's start with a quick throwback to the Rev Cave's predecessor, the Forinthry dungeon. This was released with the return of the Wilderness in February 2011 in RS2. It worked in a similar fashion, in that all the Revenants, which formerly roamed all around the wild, were relocated to this one area of the map, and that was where all the good drops like Stadius and Vesta's equipment were. In the bio, we said that the 2011 Wilderness fell into redundancy, which was a half-truth. For the 2 years up until Old School was released in 2013, the Forinthry dungeon served as the go-to location for clans looking to engage in traditional PKing, Rev Cave trips for those who remember. The problem with the Forinthry dungeon though was that it wasn't the Wilderness. Pre-10-1207, there was activity all over the place. From the demonic ruins to Rune Rocks, you'd find PKers, clans, skillers, and people with inventories full of trout. When PvP Worlds came out, most of the action moved to around BH and CWA, but it was still pretty active. Now by the time the Forinthry dungeon came out, the only constant activity was in the dungeon itself, and the rest of the Wilderness was pretty dead. Now in fairness to Old School, we didn't have things like the new bosses, Venenatus, Callisto, and Vetion, and you can still have reasonably good success PKing up there, but there's a huge disparity between the amount of activity inside the Rev Caves and what's going on in the rest of the wild. So location is one thing. Logic is another. Consider that this level 464 spider that's capable of stacking you out from full HP has a drop table where the best thing is worth 3.2 mil, whereas this level 7 imp ghost has 10 HP and can drop a 16 mil ancient relic. Exaggeration, but you get the point. But here's the thing though, the Rev Caves are working, almost perfectly. I personally have spent a lot of time in the caves, killing both Revs and people, and the numbers add up. As a PVMer, I'm making 3 to 5 mil an hour, and with a team I'll be making 5 to 10. With a clan, well over 10, and the profits scale as the numbers go up. Rot are making bills every night. The Wilderness offers the highest return. Now the second major point we made in the Wilderness bio was regarding the Wilderness food chain. Resource, skiller, solo PKer, small team, large team, clan. In the Rev Caves, we have 5 out of 6. Unless you're Torvesta, you really can't make a decent profit from the Rev's solo PKing, and even he did it camping the teleport spot rather than in the cave itself. The mechanics simply aren't suitable for your average solo PKer, because most sensible people are geared to deal with having a clan hit them, one-click teleports, bulwarks, looting bags and inventories full of food, and so on. But for a short time in recent history, there was a point where solo PKing was viable, the Mage Arena 2 mini-quest. With people out fighting the demons in the middle of nowhere and with a fair amount of supplies on them, there was the perfect opportunity for a solo PKer like me, with just a freeze and DPS, to have some fun and make some profit.
The javelin's been fired. Contact in 3, 2, 1.
And of course, I had my fair share of death to small teams and clans, so for a brief time, that missing link in the food chain had the potential to be restored. There's a rift in the RuneScape player base today between PvPers and everyone else. If people can't work their way up the food chain, they just end up despising those at the top. Now the Rev Caves haven't been out that long, and maybe we'll see an increase in the smaller teams and clans as time progresses, but I still think it's worth investing into restoring the opportunities for solo PKers. If we give people who've never set foot in the wild for anything other than a clue scroll the chance to make even more profit if they take the offensive, we can bridge that gap between the PvP world and the rest of the community. Reddit has come up with a few good suggestions, a favourite of mine being letting the Revs roam around the wild like they did pre-2011. In theory, that solves almost all the issues, bar the weird drop tables. Action is relocated all around the wild, and the PVM is with it, and then the solo PKers get in on it, and then the small teams feast on them, and so on and so on. Now, this video isn't meant to be a final solution to some monumental issue or even strong criticism. As I said before, the rev caves are working almost perfectly. Not in the most logical or efficient way, but in this weird and wonderful fashion anyway, and it's unlikely the Jaggies are immediately going to roll back on the update. But nonetheless, with wealth being the most widely pursued pursuit in RuneScape, I'm glad that it's happening in the right place. Friends, grab your blowpipes, god swords, and mauls, and go make bank in whatever way you see fit. We got people logging in.
Yeah, we're on UN, you're on the UNK, it's going south, just stay south. Yeah, just get out, this is what Clone Wars. This is the team Clone Wars had before, just get out.
Yeah, this guy had fucking big claws.
I tallied out on 3 HP.